This is Lauren Hollows for NOI Education Services. And today we are just doing a really simple one. What is the difference between assessments, assessment instruments, and assessment systems and tools? So basically, there's a couple of, there's a lot of just generic language in and around this. But if, for example, you are asked for, if you're looking at an assessment tool versus an assessment instrument, there's different kind of scales. So the language that's used within the ASQA framework, and you can look at the, I think it's called How to Develop, we're developing assessment tools. It's an FAQ that you can download from ASQA. They kind of talk about assessment system, they talk about assessment tools, and then they talk about assessment instruments. So at the smallest level is your assessment instrument. And so often you're going to have multiple instruments involved in an assessment tool, okay? So for example, quite often you may have a theory assessment, you may have a practical, and you may have a project that covers a unit of competency. Each of those by themselves is a standalone assessment instrument. It is a specific instrument that assesses, part of a unit of competency. So, our standard for NOI is either 2 or 3 assessment instruments, and we call them AT1, AT2, AT3. AT1 is always the knowledge, AT2, project, AT3 practical, as an example. And that's your assessment instruments. Then you have an assessment tool, and the assessment tool is the suite that is used across the full unit of competency. So you have X amount of assessment instruments that make up the assessment tool, and the assessment tool covers the entire unit of competency. And so that's where, for example, your mapping document is going to come into it, because you're going to have, your learner versions of the assessments, your assessor versions of the assessments, and then you're going to have your mapping guide, and all of that forms part of your assessment tool. Your assessment system takes into account the overarching for the RTO. So the assessment system is things like all of your assessment tools will form part of that. Your assessment process, so standard for us is we have an effective assessment process, which also builds in things like our validation process. What happens if a student only completes part of a unit? What happens if a student what happens if a unit fails validation? All of these sorts of things form part of the effective assessment process. And so then there would be forms, like our validation form, and maybe an assessment appeal form, or an assessment summary. All of these sorts of things, they all form part of our assessment system. So really it's just kind of that hierarchy, with assessment tool being the lowest level, assessment instrument being the lowest level, assessment tool, and then moving up into your overarching assessment system. That would also include things like your TAS, your training and assessment strategy as well. So that's just a little bit about how that language works. So if someone's saying, well, can we look at that instrument, or can we look at that tool? Then they're referring to either a specific assessment or the whole suite for that particular unit of competency. And when you're getting audited and they say, we need to look at your assessment system, that is everything. That's the whole that whole process of training and assessment strategy, mapping guides, all of your assessment tools, all that's the entire the policies and procedures, that's all of that brought in together. So yes, that is a little bit about that vernacular. Nice and quick one today. If you guys liked this, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, the notifications button, all that good stuff, so that we can keep bringing lots of content to you. If you've got any specific requests for content, by all means, send that through to us. Otherwise, hope you have a great day. This is Lauren Hollows for NOI Education Services.